Well, hey, we want to welcome our Facebook audience. Glad to have you all here. Welcome to another week, another Friday noon. It's Good Friday, and we're doing another Town Hall Live. Wow, these have been exceptional. I just can't tell you how much fun they've been to do and how profound. So much good stuff. And what I did is I created a new page on my website, everyone. It's called Learning, remarkableresults.biz/learning. And wow, all the town halls are right there. And I tell you, they're free seminars. And the beauty of it is that we didn't go out and hire, college professors to do this. It's right from the peers in the industry. So I so much appreciate everyone who's come on, and especially my three guests today. And we're going to talk about expense controls. Oh, that's like getting a root canal from your accountant, isn't it? It sure is. So let me introduce my panel. Great to have Marianne Croce of Croce Transmissions in Norwalk, Connecticut, and a former banker. That's the part I like about you a lot. Along with her husband, Tony, and I've met Tony. They're great people. They own a shop they purchased 17 years ago. Their four tech and one service advisor shop is successful because as husband and wife, Marianne and Tony work at their roles. They have an abundant trust in each other, that's how husband and wife stuff works. Marianne is also a member of the Women in Auto Care, and her and I had a great episode together back in the day, episode 23. Now think about it. Today we released episode 212, and you were in episode 23. Thank you so much for believing in me back then and coming on. And then Dave Kusa is with us. Now there is a veteran of the podcast, and I'll explain that in a minute. Dave established Auto Trend Diagnostics in 1989 and he's in Campbell, California. It's in the San Francisco Bay Area. Dave is a AAA approved auto repair facility that provides general maintenance and service for just about anything on the road. He's president, though. This is the big key of ASCCA. One heck of a great honor, and that's the huge California Shop Association that's out there. And it's good to have the president. Always good to have the president on board.
Thanks,
so
Carl.
thank you for being here. He works hard at customer relations, hometown value in a city of 2.5 million people. Now listen to Dave with me one-on-one in episode 127. And he has given so much to the town hall. He was in Town Hall Live concierge service and the car care clinic for women, and now expense control. And I sure do appreciate all the input that you provided us, Dave. Thanks. And a newcomer to Town Hall Live, just like Marianne is, but yet not to the podcast, Doug Callahan from Vic's Service Center in Wainwright, Alberta, Canada. And I think you're having an Alberta Clipper happen right now. Doug, did you say you're having snow?
Yeah, it's snowing really bad out there right now. Yeah, lots of fun in April.
Mm-hmm. Dave, do you know what snow is?
No. It's a nice thing to visit on the weekends.
I thought so. Well, Doug is from, as I said, Vic's Service in Alberta. He won the prestigious ACE, the Automotive Career and Education Award, in the small category, employees 50 and under. The award recognizes automotive aftermarket industry companies truly dedicated to investing in the growth of their employees' knowledge and skills and offering professional development and career opportunities. He was honored, at Auto Care Association's Fall Leadership Days in Washington, D.C., September 8th, just a few months back in 2016. Doug was with me in episode 49 and told us the story, the monumental transformation his company went through from training, culture, leadership, new hiring, digital vehicle inspections, and adding a second location. Mm-hmm. Wow. He credits his evolution to having a business coach. And a great episode. Thank you so much for that. Well, welcome, everyone. We're here to talk about expenses. Expenses. Oh, God. So much attention on sales, productivity, efficiency, proficiency, new customer acquisition, customer service. But at the end of the day, there's a number at the bottom line. It's called net profit. And you know how it gets there? You see, you take the gross profit dollars and then you pay expenses out of them. You see, expenses just don't somehow magically come from Santa Claus or some fictional character and dumps that profit. You have to control your expenses. So I always used to tell people in business, gross profit dollars is the only place expenses come from. And so how well you manage both the top line and that bottom line and that middle part's the expenses. So, wow. Does expense control matter? And we're here to talk about it. And Doug, I really want to start with you.
Okay.
You told me, Doug, that you started, you worked with your coach. By the way, let's tell everybody who it is. It's Bob Greenwood.
It's Bob Greenwood, yeah.
Yeah, Bob Greenwood.
Yeah, his company, yeah. A fantastic addition to my company for sure.
Well,
yeah.
you said you worked on developing a monthly spending game plan, and that's kind of like a budget, I would assume.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. There's
talk to me about it. No, talk to me about it, Doug.
So what we do at the end of every month is we enter in all of our expenses, all of our income, and with the help of Bob and some of the spreadsheets that he does, there's an analysis done, and we are able then to see where our net profit is monthly. We're able then to see where our trend lines are in our expenses. Are we lining up to what our budget goals are? Are we going to hit our net profit goals? That information and working on that, forcing me to sit down and have to actually line item go through my expenses,
yes,
definitely is advantageous to keeping us in the right path, right?
So what kind of, if you will, how are you impacted by going over those line items, those expense line items? Do you literally tell yourself, listen, I got to have a plan to cut that expense?
Yeah, I mean, you see your advertising expense all of a sudden climb up. You see your utilities go up, your insurance, like things moving around, you're aware of it instantly, right? And then you can ask the right questions and come up with the right plan versus, probably 5 years ago was a yearly snapshot, right?
You're right. What's so interesting, absolutely. What's so interesting is that you're making decisions every day. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
let's do this, let's do that. And so, Marianne, what happens is you look at your P&L and you say, did I make the decision to do that? Why's that expense so high?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I think it's very important, as Doug said, to manage your finances on a regular basis, not look at them just quarterly or, yearly, as some people, have done, to really be on top of them and know where the money is going on a, a weekly. I look at things weekly. I came up with theme days, and we go in and I dedicate a day or part of a day to working on financials, and that way it doesn't get pushed to the back burner, and before you know it, it's a quarter, or because when you wait, you're looking at what happened, but you're not really looking at what's going on right now.
Theme days. I love the concept. And one of the theme days is financial?
Yeah.
And do you and Tony sit down and, first of all, are you having an accountant prepare your statement, or are you doing it?
I'm handing things over to an accountant for tax purposes, but I'm basically doing everything during the year.
You are.
Myself.
Do you set up, you have a budget?
Right. I have a budget, know what our expenses are, and we look at that on a regular basis to see how did this month go as compared to last. Kind of like reverse engineering it. How much work is your shop capable of, and are you reaching those goals?
Got it. I understand. Now, Dave, if you were looking over your financial statement and you saw something that wasn't in alignment, would you go out and really look for maybe a better deal? Say credit card processing fees were just way out of whack?
Yes. I mean, the simple answer is yes. And Doug has a good point working with a coach. I have a coach as well, and that's how we are always looking at our expenses and keep them in line. I have maybe a little different view than, maybe not, but sometimes an expense is offset by a better value in a customer service, right? We don't necessarily always need the cheapest if the cheapest doesn't come with the added value of service on when you need it. Credit cards are a great example. When you need help with that terminal, or you need help with a process that's not going through, you make a phone call. Do you get a person? Do you get a recording? You have to go through the phone tree. So is it worth a tenth or two here to have a better service experience there? Right? In my mind, yes. Not every time, but sometimes, yes.
I get it. So you're saying just maybe I can shave 25 basis points, 0.25% on a fee, but I may not get the support that I need.
Exactly. Yes.
So
but with that being said, you always have to keep an eye on it.
You always have to manage your expenses. I mean, is the theme here, guys, that you have to manage your expenses? You just can't let them be like a runaway train?
Yeah.
Yes.
Business coaches, will they give you KPIs or what they would expect that expense line to be as a percent of sales? And are you trying to live within that?
They
Doug,
better be.
Yeah, it better
For
be.
sure.
Okay, now I love that, Dave. It better be. Is that your personal discipline, or is that what your coach wants to see?
Both.
Very good answer. Very, very good answer. Hey, before the coach, Dave, were you as disciplined as you are today?
No.
Another very honest answer. I love that. I just love that from you. Doug, how about you?
No, not at all. I mean, the coach brings accountability, right? When, you move from the back shop running the business, you're kind of learning as you go, and it really pays to have somebody kind of hold your feet to the fire on some things. I mean, and it takes discipline just to get the stuff done. I've seen lots of guys add on the coach, and just because they think they have the coach, they feel like they're doing good stuff, but they're not doing the work, right? So the coach keeps us accountable for sure. Yeah, that's worthwhile.
So, is expense control a team event? Can the people who work for you help you with that?
Well, yeah, like yesterday we had there's a new piece of equipment that was, the guys wanted in the shop, and we had a demo in, and I actually brought the team together and said, I sent the sales guy out and I said, okay, well, let's sit down and have a chat. Are we going to utilize it right from the service advisor down? Can you sell this piece of equipment? Is this something that we're going to use? And then we're going to measure it out every month and make sure that what it costs, we're making money on it, right? And the guys and everybody saw value. They saw they could save some time on doing a procedure. I have no problem making that expense because everybody's on board and the expectations should be met then once we purchase.
So you're talking about a lease expense for a piece of equipment? Yeah,
exactly. But it's another expense added in, another piece that I don't have that I'm spending right now. And, the team's aware that if we're bringing stuff on, they're going to have to utilize it and gain efficiencies.
Okay. So we sit down with the team, and we say, listen, this payment's $350.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to generate revenue to cover that. But we really have to exceed the $350. We didn't buy the equipment to break even. Is that part of your talk?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. They understand, we talk numbers with them. They understand net isn't a bad thing in our business. They understand that, and the business to buy that equipment needs to be successful from a net profit standpoint. Yeah.
Got it. Same with you, Dave, or Marianne?
Yeah, definitely with us. That same conversation happens that Doug just described. And I think the other place where in the shop where our technicians can really help with those expenses is, in California, we can't do a shop supplies just a percentage, right? So if we grab a nut and bolt from the box, or a can of brake clean, or the little roll lock disc, right, those things tend to not make it onto the repair order. Now, of course, there's an expense for purchasing those components, but there ought to be a revenue on the other end. So I think that's a big challenge for me in expense control is keeping everybody on track to, what did you use? What little knickknack parts and pieces did you just grab off the shelf and put on this car that we need to make sure that we're billing out to the customer and the client, so that we're not having that leak, that $2 or $3 per repair order leak.
That's a big point. Shop supplies cost you a lot of money every year, don't they?
Absolutely.
Marianne, same?
There's another thing, yeah, that I would like to talk about.
Sure.
When we think about our expenses, right, we think about the ROI, the return on investment,
Yep.
which is, we're all aware of that. But then there's another thing to consider too, the ROE, the return on effort, which is time, because some of these things take time. And it's easy to see in the shop portion of it, a technician, let's say, we'll talk really basic here, basic example. You probably wouldn't want to take your highest paid tech and have that tech stop production and be driving around for parts or shuttling customers. We can all see that and understand that. But as a owner, sometimes what we have to focus on making better use of our time, because when we sit down, we're figuring out, well, we're doing this, but are we making the most use of our time, or could we delegate or get someone else to do some of those tasks so that we're focusing on revenue generating activities, sales, or that are going to increase sales or going to move our business forward. So that's a huge thing as well. I think that
I agree. You bring up such a great point. We are paying for training. Training is an expense line in our business, and if the training doesn't have the impact that it should, it's probably a bigger cost than it is a revenue generator, right? I mean, it's the same concept. I loved your point about the lease payment, and we've got to meet that or grow it. So, hey, we've just spent $5,000 this year on training. Guys, team, did we get our money's worth? Have we actually been able to become more productive and more efficient for that expense line that sits, there below the gross margin line? And I guess another great item to bring up in your daily meet or your daily scrum. Wow. And I learned that word scrum from Mr. Greenwood, by the way. Yes. So, Dave, when's an expense not an expense?
Thank you for asking. I use Kukui for my marketing, acquisition, retention. There's a number of great companies out there that provide these services for our shops, and I'll have that conversation with someone about what we're doing, right? Hey Dave, what do you do? So we talk about it. Well, what's that cost, right? And I tell them how much it costs a month. It's like, wow, that's expensive. I can't afford that. It's like, well, can you afford a 10, 15, 20 or 20 to 1 ROI? Because for every dollar I'm spending with these guys, they're bringing me $15 or $20 worth of business between acquisition and marketing, right? So, that retention. So clearly it's an expense, but as Marianne said, right, that ROI, that ROE, how much effort would I spend trying to do what Kukui does? I couldn't. And the payback, because we can track it and monitor it, is huge, right? It's a great asset to our business. So, the training expense that you mentioned, what's that payback? We have to track that and keep control of what that brings to us. So yeah, it's an expense, but if it wasn't there, our net would be a lot less because we wouldn't have the sales that we achieve now because of those services that we pay for.
Great point. How many times have I heard on this show, be it in a podcast or I think even on a town hall, where the business coaches have heard from their clients, says, you're the cheapest employee that I have.
Right.
And so many people say, I can't afford to hire a business coach. And how many great stories have been on the podcast about hiring a service advisor? As the evolution of, the great thing is about the podcast is these great stories get told about their remarkable results. And they say, the best thing I ever did was hire the service advisor. I paid for that person in 3 months, because I took myself off the counter, brought in a higher degree of accountability and training that I was unwilling to adapt to or do. And yeah, are you all putting your costs in your expense line, or are they up in a labor calculation? Is your payroll down below in the expense line?
Technicians are in cost of goods, as all our great coaches instruct us to do, and then salespeople, service advisor, management, that's in expenses.
Okay, got it. Is there any? Can we control our payroll team? I'm going to ask each of you to give me your take on that.
Yes.
Go
So
ahead, Dave. I'll let you go first, Dave. Then
Okay.
we'll go to Doug and then Mary Ann.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. So yes, employee costs expenses. Yes, they can be controlled. You got to make sure. Well, it's that labor leak that we see a lot, right? Are we utilizing our 8 hours we bought in the morning by 5 o'clock in the afternoon? And if we're not utilizing them, right, is our tech productivity a problem? Are we paying somebody that is not productive for whatever reason, right? Solve that problem. Do we have too many techs, right? Do we have 4 or 5 techs when we would only need 2 or 3 because of productivity issues in the shop, so on and so forth. So, are you willing to send somebody home at 2 in the afternoon when there's nothing to do today? Those kind of things. So those can be big leaks or big costs on expenses.
And that would be an hourly person,
right?
And so you have to think about office staff too, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff. Doug?
Yeah, that's labor costs are big. They got to show us that we are getting that 8 hours a day. And right now I'm in a unique situation. I have quite a few apprentices, and it's something we talk about a lot, in our scrum and it's got to be. There's accountability through the whole shop on how we're going to manage that and get that, and help support that staff. And, when you get to a point where you've done everything and you can't get that productivity, then maybe, those are tough decisions that have to be made. And that's why we're the CEOs, right? We got to make those decisions sometimes and be aware that, you've done what you can, but sometimes you got to cut that person go so yeah, we definitely have the ability to control our labor. Yeah.
Mary Ann.
Yeah, we definitely can control the labor. I agree with both Dave and Doug. The shop can be bloated in different areas, just as Dave was saying. You could have too many technicians. You could have too much coming out for support staff if that's not planned correctly. We have one service writer who is Tony, my husband, but we found that we needed another person to help out with the phones, scheduling appointments, pickup and delivery of vehicles, really giving the customers that great service. So he could really focus on service writing and sales. And then there's some also a little bit of accounting and those types of things that we were able to add on. I started with a part-time person in the summer and learned that I had more work than I realized that I could hand off to someone. So that turned into a part-time job for 2 years. And then from there, when she got out of college and had left, I realized that I had a full-time position for someone. So yeah, I think that watching that and keeping track of it, and not necessarily job sharing, but knowing what roles can overlap and where someone can pitch in and help out, because each person has different strengths. So I say, use those strengths and people are happy.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah, Doug.
That's just a big stress reliever to be able to dispatch that off to somebody else, and then now you can quiet your brain down and actually focus on the business. And that's what I've noticed. Like, I've got more staff than I ever dreamed I would have, and what they're doing now, they do so much better at that than what I was doing before. And I hear Mary Ann, it must have been just a relief to get some of that help, for sure.
It was. I was trying to do it all.
Yeah, just crazy. Yeah.
Boy, can I relate to all that stuff. Okay. This is your show, not mine, because I was going to go off on a tirade here. Paying your bills, paying your parts bills, and getting a cash discount. Do you calculate that as a smart expense control?
Oh yeah, any types of rebates, discounts. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they can be big. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they can make a difference to your net very, very quickly.
And that is, having been in the distribution business, it was always something to be able to go to a service professional and show them what they were leaving on the table every year, if they would just learn to run a better business. And it's just great to have you all here, because that's probably all old news for you, because a lot of times when you start up, you never put any cash in the bank to say, I need to start my business with some cash on hand so I could run it for 6 months. Nah, I won't do that. I'll just
bootstrap it.
Yeah, exactly right. That was the word I was going to use, Dave. Thank you very much. Bootstrapping. Marianne, you sent me a great idea about networking and how networking in your community can help you save money. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, networking, I mean, even within our industry, we were just talking about expenses of parts, right? Knowing your vendors, knowing your suppliers, having relationships with them, or do we just pay our bill every month and that's basically it? So that builds relationships, and networking in the community also is a great way to build relationships with people that you could use their services, support their businesses, and they turn around and support yours. So whether it's being involved with a chamber, or different business groups locally, I found that I learned a lot from within the industry, but I also get some really great ideas from outside of the industry, just different businesses that I go to, that I'm a customer of. And one of the things that I've done over the last few years was, it's kind of like when we think about our businesses and we think about quality customers that we want, quality suppliers, vendors, all of that, even team members, right? I feel very blessed, the people that I have on my team. But when we think about it, about the saving money part or expenses, what kind of customer are we when we go out? So do we look for quality? And I think that's something to be aware of. So yeah, being a part of the community and supporting the community, I've made some great relationships, got to know a lot of local businesses, and it's really helped my business.
Anybody else? Doug, Dave, community bring value to expense control?
Yeah, I think so. And I just wanted to compliment Mariana, what she said about being the customer that you want your customer to be, right? I mean, that is profound way of putting it.
Yes.
We look at expenses, our cost of parts as obviously a big expense, but can't live without them, right? Because you can't fix cars without them. But I have one main supplier that we go to as our first call, and we have constantly people saying, "Hey, use us, use us, use us," and it's like, I know you got great parts, I know you have great service, I know you have competitive pricing, but these are my guys right there. That's our relationship, and I want to do business as a relationship-based business with my clients and my suppliers and vendors and business partners, because when I have a problem, they take care of it. That goes back to that. Maybe you're paying a tick or two higher, but the service and the value of that service is you can't you can't put that on a balance sheet or a P&L.
Doug, I want to get to you in a minute, but Dave, you bring up an interesting thing about parts. Parts is always in your cost of goods. As far as I understand your business, and I think I do, that helps create your gross margin.
Right, exactly.
But and that 2%, is probably, I'm not sure where your accountant would put that. You would put that in a discount earned, but it's probably coming off of, it's probably improving your gross margin. But yeah, I love Marianne's piece, and maybe we should get back to that in a minute. Doug, talk to me about community and networking.
Yeah, community and networking is huge. I'm involved with our local credit union and through minor hockey and a whole bunch of things. And people, I do believe, do business with us or with me because, they know who I am. You're present in the community. They kind of know what you're about. So I think it brings them through the door. I think it's important. It's part of our culture for sure. From a supplier standpoint, I've got one call, my first call supplier, and he isn't just a supplier. He's part of my business. He knows that. Like, if he lets me down, he knows at the end of the day, the client's going to be let down. And that's at the forefront of my business, is that guy at the end of the line. So if we have an issue, he knows that he's got to take care of it. So, I have other suppliers looking for my business. And the one supplier came to me and said, what, I'll tell you what, if it's the rebate you want, I'll just charge you more on your parts like they're charging you, and I'll give it back to you at the end of the year. And I looked at him and I'm like, you don't even get what we're doing. Like you're not you can't fit into my world. You don't understand what we're doing. So yeah, being involved in the community and with having good relationships is big in our business for sure.
So I have, I now have some itching questions because you've all brought up such great things. But let me put this community thing. Let me end it by saying, if I was involved in the chamber, like you said, Marianne, and all the businesses in my community, and I knew this roofer who was in the chamber. I know him pretty good, and all of a sudden I have a leak, and I call him up and says, "Hey, Bob, come on over. I have a leak." Of course, he's going to be paid his service fees to fix your roof, but
Of course.
you may never know. You may get a special, price or discount because he likes you, because you're in the chamber with that person, he or she, and that to me, in a very subliminal way, is a way to make sure that your network is big enough. So when you need to go to someone reliable, you also can, basically, if you go to someone that's not reliable, and you know this better than anyone, and they use not quality parts or materials, and you have to do it again in 2 or 3 years, those are costs charged to your business because you made a poor choice up front. Which is why, if the network was big and strong and you knew these people, people buy from people they know, and relationships are important. And it goes back to the customers that you're hunting for, and then all the people that provide the services in the expense category for you: plumbers, electricians, and roofers. And wow, thank you for bringing that up. I think that was really important. Now, let me challenge you about a few expense items. But before I do that, it's the bottom of the hour, and I always stop. And I want to remind everyone what we've done this week. We've released episode 212 today with Chuck Abbott. He's the VP of CPS Automotive, the VP of Sales. I met him at the big event in Westchester County, New York. We sat down, and he was pretty darn smart. His company owns some pretty big brand names in the industry as far as chemicals, smoke machines, motor vac, stuff like that. And I asked him all about the needs of the service professional. He did an excellent job. It was a great episode. And this past Tuesday, episode 211, Judy and Dana Hagelin, recorded at Vision. They were the 2015 Motor Age Top Shop of the Year, and Dana was honored in 2013 as the ASE CarQuest TechNet Master Technician of the Year. Great ideas. Good old husband and wife, just like Marianne and Joe. Tony, Marianne and Tony, great stories about how they have made their longtime 30-some-year marriage work. So thank you for both of those episodes this week. And boy, lots going on. But here's my thought about the bottom line, the expense line of the business. I'm gonna throw out some categories. I want you to mull them around in your head. And then I would love each of you to reply to: can you control or save on rent, on any loan interest? We talked about credit card services a little earlier. Laundry, uniform, promotion. Any of those excite anything you'd like to talk about as far as controlling those items?
Guess not.
Yeah, who wants to talk about that?
So yeah, I mean, all of them. Well, if you look at the lease, the loans, building lease or equipment lease, right? I mean, there is always, I suppose, some room for negotiation in those things, because if you're leasing your building, right, it's hard to go shop a new lease for a building because you probably don't want to move, but at the same time, there is some value to the landlord having a good rent-paying tenant, so perhaps there is some room in negotiation for that. Same thing with equipment leases, right? You can shop that lease a little bit and see if there's any better rates, because in those things, very little. I always equate it back to the service aspect, right? So if I'm going to buy a piece of equipment and I'm going to lease it from somebody, there's very little service on the lease end, right? I write the check, they're happy. I don't write the check, they get mad. Where there is no service there. So negotiating a lower rate in that, I think you have to. Things like the insurances, the credit cards, you got to balance that. Negotiable, sure, but you got to balance it with the service.
Got it. Doug,
Yeah.
same thing?
Yeah, I mean, respectfully for the businesses that I'm dealing with, I guess I've always approached it as I don't expect people to push me for the lowest price. I just am very upfront. Give me a fair, honest price. Give me good service. I'm willing to pay a fair price for that. I'm not going to grind you on your price, right? And equipment, I'm not going to look for the cheapest piece of equipment, but give me a fair price on that good piece of equipment, right? And I'll do my due diligence in making sure that it is a fair price. But once that's done, loan interest and that stuff, those businesses are in that business. And the only thing I can do is keep myself in a good rating, like that I will get a good rate because I am that kind of business, right? I'm not a high risk business to deal with. So that's kind of how I'd approach it.
It's a high class and very sharp way to do it. You want to treat your business partners on the expense line the same as you want your customers to treat you, and you know what kind of customers you're looking for.
Yep.
And you know what kind of suppliers on the expense line you want to do business with.
Absolutely.
Marianne.
Yeah, I agree. It's mutual respect. One thing I would add is cash flow in a shop is really important. You could have a great business, but if you have too much on accounts receivable, that could really affect your business. So maybe coming up with payment plans, or for our customers, we came up with a third party that they could apply for credit, and then that takes it off of our books, which helped a lot. But cash flow too also gives you the power to, when different opportunities come up, you're ready for it. So as far as the rent and all of those types of things, I can kind of speak from both sides because Tony and I rented for years, and about 2.5, I believe, years ago, we purchased our building. And it's not just one business in the building. I have 2 tenants in the building as well. So now I became a landlord.
Got it. Very good.
Yeah. So
I was going to, yeah.
Ends.
Excellent. And I love your point about cash flow. We should do a show about that. I know nobody will watch it. Cash flow. Ooh, bad stuff. I know. And you know what? If the cash doesn't flow, the business doesn't go.
There you go.
And really, that's it would be probably one of the most important episodes to listen to, but nobody wants to hear cash flow.
Well, then how
accounting
secure,
P&Ls.
how secure, right? If we're looking at that for just a moment, with all of this topic that we're talking about, if you don't have the cash flow and the business is not really sustainable,
right,
how secure is it for your team, for your vendors, suppliers, all of that? So it really is. It's not just the owner. it's
to say
everyone.
the business is sustainable only with cash flow. And your points are so well taken. And I joke about the cash flow piece for this one particular reason. You're professional, Marianne. I don't think you came up from a banker, but in the case of Doug and Dave, I'm assuming you guys were great techs. You learned to run a great business, and cash flow was like way out there. It was at the Z level in your learning period, and you were kicking and screaming over the line to learn what that's all about and how to manage that. And people say, if I don't have to, I just keep ignoring it. But maybe we should do a show on that. I wanted to mention or talk about rent. And Marianne, you helped me understand you own yours. Dave, I think you rent.
I do.
And Doug?
I own my main location, rent the other location, yeah.
And the reason that I mentioned rent just a few minutes ago, do you remember the crash in 2008? Doug, do you guys go through a recession up there in Canada?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
There was a change in spending, yeah.
All right. So many of the really big box stores that you saw at the malls, they went to every one of their landlords and they said, hey, look, our business is dead. We just can't keep paying these rents. And leases were renegotiated by the bushel full back during the recession. So all my point in bringing that up was to say, if there's ever a downturn again and you're renting, don't hesitate. Because what really happened after the big negotiations in 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009, the small business people said, well, if they could do it, we could do it. And there were so many small business people that just went to their landlords that were in the third year of a 10-year lease and said, you know what? I'm probably out of here in a couple of years because my business went, I lost whatever, 30%. You got to help me. And so many leases were renegotiated for that. So I just wanted to share that with you. Doug, let me ask you, is there any great piece of wisdom or advice that you'd love to share?
Well, just from Marianne's point, and I think it's important that, you got to have your expenses in line, you got to have your sales tracked, but you talk about cash flow and what it does when you're in a positive cash flow situation and how you then manage the business versus when you're in a shortfall in your cash flow. Like, as owners, our brains turn into a panic, emotional state, and we start making dumb decisions. And probably one of the hardest things I've had to learn is to stay calm, evaluate, and then make good strategic decisions versus what we used to do was just freak out. And that's probably the one thing that, as I'm growing in this process, that, stay calm, evaluate, and be present in your business that way, for sure. And cash flow and my mindset has been a big advantage over the last couple of years. Yeah. Great
words. Be present. Don't freak out. I love that.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you. I'm going to save Our Lady to the last. Dave?
Thanks, Carmen. Yeah, so I have the two things actually. So one, we briefly touched on training as as an expense, but how important it is. So in my area, and I'm not familiar with Doug and Marianne's area, but we have lots of opportunities, right? There's so many shops, so many opportunities for training here that people come to the area to put on training. So a couple years back, my friend Pete Rudloff in Delaware, not a very densely populated area, was spending a bunch of money traveling to high level, very high level technical training. So he and some of his cohorts in the area put together the Delaware Training Group, pooled their resources and brought trainers to them. So got that high level training they needed and wanted to keep their business growing from a technician standpoint, but saved a ton of money on those expenses. So we're able to reap the rewards on that ROI a lot quicker. So
that's a great point. Now, Pete's been on the show, so anyone needs to go to the website, go to the search bar, and just type in Pete Rudloff and listen to Pete's episode. Wow. A fun episode with Pete. I go back and I remember it is. Yeah, he was great. Thanks for bringing that up, Dave.
Yeah. And the second one, the power of the associations. Doug had mentioned it too, right? And California, ASCCA, you mentioned I'm president, powerful association. Other states, ASA affiliates are powerful. Look, if you're not a member of your state association or you don't have can't organize one, but we have great partners with DFG for credit cards, great partners in Armstrong and Associates for insurance, right? So they negotiate that stuff for us and bring us the best prices we can get and still have an opportunity to support the association. So it takes a lot of that worry off of my plate on looking for the best prices and balancing that with the best services. And I can't, obviously I'm president, right? Can't say enough about it that your state association can be a great opportunity to help with expenses. I mean, what I save in my insurance and my credit card processing and uniforms and such pays for my dues. So it's huge.
We got to do a show on associations, Dave.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
I mean, will you be on again?
Absolutely. I'll be on every week if you want.
I know you will. I'll break the code. I'll share with our listener. I have shows planned out for the next 8-9 weeks, and I reach out to my podcast alumni. I tell them what the show's names are, and if you have a passion to discuss it. And Dave comes up almost every one because he is so passionate, and then I have a problem because I have 10 great alumni looking for 3 seats on the show, and then I have to pick. And I believe I picked 3 great podcast alumni to be on for the expense control show. Marianne, your last words.
I agree with the trade associations, very important. I didn't come from an automotive background, so many of them are near and dear to me because I wanted to learn more about the industry. So when we bought our shop in '99, that was really important to me, and I made so many connections and just was like a sponge, going and learning as much as I could. So I know that the people that I met were great and really made a big impact on our success in running our business. What I wanted to add, though, was resources that are right there, kind of like under our nose in our shop. We pay for, our management software that we write our invoices on. There's software that we use to send out emails or get reviews. A lot of this stuff is updated, and what I tend to do is go back and revisit, and it's not always necessarily me, it may be somebody on the team, but what new features are on there? Is there anything on there we're not utilizing because we're already paying for it? So we may have resources that are right in our shop under our nose and we're not aware of it.
Boy, that's such a great point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your new piece of software has an update. Would you like to load now?
A new feature, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, yes, you're right. You flip the button, it does the update, and you have no clue what it's there for and why you just updated. And there are so many great enhancements and features that are sitting in the software that you use, and you probably are using just one little tip of that iceberg, aren't you?
Well, yeah, like our shop just had the update in our management system, and they actually offer webinars to go in and see what the features are. I've never sat down and done them, and I did it and now I won't miss it because I'm like, holy smokes, does this thing do a lot of stuff I didn't even know it did? Yeah, for sure.
Well, great. All right, look at a couple of takeaways for me. Association memberships, critical and important because it can help you with your expense control. Having a business coach is almost one of those, let me see, what do you have to do to run a good business today? Join an association, have a business coach, create a great business culture, right? Be sure that you allow a great budget for training because you need it in all areas, both business management, technician, and service writer, and on and on. And what wonderful themes continue to come up for the podcast and our listener. And so I want to thank Doug Callahan up in Alberta, Canada, for being with us. And way out to the West Coast, Dave Kusa with us. Thank you so much for gracing us with your wisdom. And Marianne, a newcomer to Town Hall Live, but not a newcomer to the podcast. Thank you all for being on. And I have a quote for everyone. I have a quote to end the show. It's from Ben Franklin. And would you believe I found a quote on expense control from Ben Franklin? And here it is. Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship.
That's a good point.
That's a good point.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben. And thank you all for being here. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Carb.
Thanks, Carb.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Bye, guys.
Take
Have
care.
a great day.